In the series of chapters titled Encounters, Dillard uses the common theme of smoking in order to link the encounters together. This shows up in 3 passages: the passage with the Elvis, the passage with Joseph the Palestinian, and the passage with the wine merchant. In each passage, the meetings she has are either preempted or developed with cigarettes and smoking. With Elvis, the only reason she was standing next to him is because she was having a cigarette. Joseph and her exchange cigarettes in order to develop a repertoire between them. She smokes with the wine merchant, even referencing her tendency to smoke in the passage and suggesting smoking to mark an occasion. This isn't a PSA on anti-smoking or pro-smoking, but Dillard isn't doing this by accident. She uses cigarettes and smoking as an example of a method used to bring strangers together in the world. She could have used playing cards, or drinking alcohol, or walking your dog. For her, cigarettes began these encounters, and those encounters were profound to her. Quote, "Do you think I don't know cigarettes are fatal?" Dillard proves it herself with this sentence. She isn't suggesting that people start going out and smoking because that's the only way you'll meet interesting people. She's saying that little things can bring people together, like flying kites, or petting dogs, or playing cards, no matter what they might be. For Dillard, that little thing just happened to be a cigarette.
Fatal consequences of smoking, she believes the opportunity to create a relationship outweighs this haunting fact. Being one of the more positive sections of the book, Dillard uses encounters to say while yes, we will all die and our lives will mean nothing, the opportunities to create relationships while we are living are endless. Just a couple seconds of asking someone for a lighter can give flight to a relationship.
Dillard's use of imagery in For the Time Being opens a new and unique perspective and understanding about the encounters we face during our time being. She writes about different people she has encountered during her journey through Israel to provide a deeper understanding of how these quizzical encounters affect our lives. For example, she writes about the time when she walked past a Dutchman who was splitting wood. She describes hearing the raw ring of the wood hitting the platform, followed by a complete silence. Dillard conveys it made her feel strong, like she could, quote, hammer the world. This is similar to the encounter with the blue crab and the Dutchman. Dillard was again simply walking through a stream when she noticed a blue crab, a simple creature with relatively no significance, but because it was swimming wildly in the desert rather than sitting in the boiling pot of a Chinese man, it was worth showing someone, and the only man around her was a Dutchman. Dillard explains that she did not understand much of the conversation her and the Dutchman were having, but it, quote, had its moments. An unusual conversation that started at the sight of a small crab between 2 complete strangers wasn't a magical conversation, but it was one worth remembering. It was a simple encounter that had a powerful effect. Another example of this was the encounter with the Down syndrome girl. On her journey up the mountain, as she was peeking over the balcony with others, she began to descend down the stairs when a young girl looked up and grabbed her hand. Dillard described this encounter in detail, describing the young girl's, quote, familiar and endearing eyes. Dillard uses this image to contrast the typical image of a young girl with Down syndrome and how through a person's eyes they are seen as different. The purpose of this encounter is to understand that people are people despite mental or physical challenges, so readers can understand the importance of a simple encounter with a stranger and how important and eye-opening it can be.
The use of the man chopping wood, the blue crab, and the Israeli girl with Down syndrome all relay Dillard's purpose that one's uniqueness can make time stop where nothing else matters but the connection born between 2 people. For example, the spotting of a blue crab in a desert gave way to an instant connection between Dillard and a man who could not even speak English. Dillard uses encounters to proclaim something like a crab can alter someone's life and align 2 people who on any other day would have no business meeting each other.
Now, the final way that Dillard puts forward her purpose is her use of foreigners and people of different nationalities along her travels. In Chapter 3, she recounts her time in Israel with Joseph, who tells her that he speaks Arabic, Hebrew, and English. This is interesting because, as a Palestinian, it comes as a surprise that he also speaks Hebrew, the language of the Jewish faith. Further still, he is a Christian. So, as a Palestinian Christian who speaks Hebrew, he represents all 3 of the Abrahamic religions at the same time. And what does Dillard offer him? A Coke. In this, she's reaching across layers of barrier to share a moment with a simple gesture of friendship. When Joseph asks Dillard, before dinner, at hotel, I invite you, Dillard's purpose in this passage is revealed. Because of his poor English, she misinterprets his invitation to be for dinner, when in reality it was only to repay the favor of the drink. In this, Dillard shows that we should appreciate other cultures beyond words themselves, and use methods that are not constrained by the state of being a foreigner. This leads to the conclusion that valuable encounters with people can still happen and should still be pursued past cultural boundaries. Another example of this respect for cultures can be seen in the next chapter, where she talks with a Dutchman after seeing a blue crab on the banks of the Jordan River. Even though Dillard does not speak Dutch, her effort to speak a word with the man in his own language significantly changes their interaction. He is pleasantly surprised by her knowledge, and although it is possible that he speaks English as well, he decides to use Dutch, assuming that she understands. This encounter might not have happened if not for her accent and attempt to reach out to him across his language. This fleet meeting was not yet so deep as, say, a marriage, but it had its moments. She understands that in all likelihood she will not see him again, but she acknowledges the significance of human bonding and respect for culture, emphasizing it by relating it to marriage, in this case, only for a moment. Finally, Dillard's meeting with a baby on a motorcycle in North Yemen highlights a different kind of foreigner, that of age. From a child to an adult, there lays an entire world of separation, and yet in this encounter, she makes it through. The audience of hundreds adds even more to this, the suspense of not knowing whether or not Dillard will abuse this act of friendship and kindness. The baby extended to me a keyring. I took the keyring, held it in sight, and thanked the baby the way one does. I handed the keyring back. They all exhaled at once. I could hear it. The crowd is relieved to see her play with the baby, having a meaningful moment without any understood words being exchanged at all, and seeing a respect for the almost complete disconnect between its world and ours.
The foreign relationships Dillard acquires throughout the novel gives way to the idea of how culture should not make a huge difference in whether a relationship is created or not. A relationship is made through actions that are able to touch people, exactly like cultures or dialects should not be an obstacle for a relationship to occur. A connection does not need speaking, and this is Dillard's point. A simple action of helping a Greek lady who could only say the word sorry was able to affect Dillard in many more ways than believed.